Welcome back to this week's episode of the Seatown Podcast, where we invite on Seattle area business owners, entrepreneurs, and community leaders to share their stories with us. I'm your host, Christian Harris. This week's episode of the Seatown Podcast is brought to you by Seatown Real Estate. Their mission is to make an impact by embedding excellence and giving into everything they do. Visit seatown.com, that's sea-town.com, to see how their unconventional approach and community partnership with local nonprofits are making a difference for their agents, their clients, and their community. Experience the difference with Seatown Real Estate. Welcome back to the Seatown Podcast. Today I'm joined by Tony Burlison, the owner of Dark Timber Coffee. I was introduced to you via my dad. I guess you guys met through some angling and
BHA event.
Yep, and hunting group. So tell me a little bit more about Dark Timber and what you guys do there.
Dark Timber is a local coffee company. We launched back in May of 2017. We specialize predominantly in like backcountry backpacking coffee.
Okay.
Now we do have like a regular bag coffee, like 12 ounce and that kind of stuff. But what really sort of kicked us off was what's called our Ascent packs. So they're like a single serve fractional packaging.
Okay.
You can get some and grab a handful and throw them in your backpack, and then once you hit the trailhead, you just know that you have good coffee ready to go.
Sure.
So it's not instant coffee, so you're still going to brew it, right? So it's not sort of like a dump and stir style coffee, Starbucks via kind of thing. And what it is it's 100% Arabica, specialty grade coffee. We hand source all of our coffee that we buy from small estates. So we're a very farm direct coffee company.
Okay.
I've been in the coffee industry for about 15 years. Before I launched Dark Timber, I was the master roaster director of coffee for a larger coffee company here in Seattle. So I brought a lot of that expertise and relationships and things like that with me to Dark Timber Coffee.
Okay.
Now with Dark Timber Coffee, there's a conservation component to it. So we're very big proponents of conservation, public lands conservation, public wildlife conservation. So a portion of all of our sales gets donated to organizations that we stand behind. BHA is one. Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership is another one. Locally, Wild Steelhead Coalition, we stand behind them. So we're really trying to make an impact in what we do. Beyond just some trailhead management things, what I mean, stuff like that. So
cool. I like that. It's definitely in line with what I try to do in my business.
Yeah, it's I wish more companies did it. I wish more companies actually took a stand and would do things like that instead of
It seems like it's becoming increasingly more popular. Maybe it says like more millennials that have more of a impact, social, consciousness are getting into business or something. How can I leverage this business to not only make a living, but to make impact beyond?
Right. Because for instance, like public lands, if those ever went away, what would you do? I mean, like, where would you recreate?
Right. You don't think about it until they're not available. Yeah.
Right. You would go to the king's forest, right? You would pay the king to step foot on his forest and go do your hiking or whatever. And if those go away, like specifically, in the last couple of years, we've been dealing with the transfer of lands to federal lands to states.
Okay.
Right. So federal lands get transferred to states. States typically are going to shut them down and sell them off, right? Because they can't really have a deficit. They have to balance the books, right? Sure. So they tend to liquidate these public lands, and they become not public anymore. They become shopping malls and giant complexes.
Okay.
So
I wasn't even really aware of that dynamic.
Yeah, not a lot of people are. Yeah. In the hunting and angling community, it's very in the forefront. Like that community is in the forefront of fighting that transfer. Sure. So
that's great.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So
going back kind of the business, coffee side of things, what was kind of the big impetus for going from where you were roasting to starting your own thing? Obviously what you've got going on is pretty niche as far as single serve, kind of backpack oriented.
Yeah, very niche market. I had a roasting company before I went to the company I had before this, or worked before this. So I wanted to get back to that, right? So it's not that I didn't have control of what I was doing and what we offered, but it was just, I couldn't fully express what I wanted to do through that way, right? So after 11 years of being with them and being at the helm of that, it just got to the point where, I needed to go out and strike out on my own. Yeah. I needed to do these things that I felt were important. Making an impact with public lands and public wildlife and trying to preserve that for our children and our children's children, because we're just renting it, was very important to me.
Yeah.
And it just, that stuff wasn't getting done where I was at.
Sure. Okay. I can definitely relate. I mean, in my space, I could have kept selling homes, but I only had so much latitude to really do what I wanted to do, within a franchise or someone else's business.
It just wasn't feeding that part of me, right? It's the coffee roasting side, the sourcing side, the traveling to origin and meeting the farmers and doing farm assessments and doing all those things. I love doing that. I'm still doing that, but there's that other part that just wasn't there. And you can do it personally, right? But I think as this company grows, it's going to have a lot more impact than if I was just personally doing.
Sure, you're able to scale it and
touch
more people's lives. Yeah. So, I mean, when you started Dark Timber, what was kind of the biggest change or surprise for you from what you knew about roasting to, okay, now it's my own business, I've got to get everything set up, maybe some things you weren't expecting?
Yeah, all the different hats was the biggest thing. Being a director coffee master roaster for so long, it's, you're kind of, you've got a lot of other help, right? But when I started Dark Timber, wasn't very much help beyond myself, right? So the social media part of it, I'm not good at that stuff, right? But then I had to learn it, right? And it's just like sort of staying on top of it, never letting it get stagnant, making sure that the content is what people want to see. Like, I didn't know that kind of stuff. So that was the biggest change for me beyond outside of roasting and doing all that stuff, because that's stuff that I love and I've been doing it for a long time. So that wasn't too different.
Yeah.
But that extra couple hats with the social media part of it, the customer service part of it, and all that stuff was a real eye-opener.
Sure. How did you get to a place of being able to kind of balance all that? I mean, you've got the roasting, which you know and have been doing, but then you got all these other hats, and then you've got your passions for conservation and hunting.
Yeah, I split it up. If you look at it like in a day perspective, I split up the day. So then I'm like, we're roasting and packaging all this stuff this part of the day, and then this part of the day is dedicated to social media, and I had to make a schedule of it.
Do some time blocking.
Yeah, because some time blocking. If I didn't do that, it was like this whirlwind, like this tornado of things that I needed to do that were kind of spinning over my head, and it's just like trying to grab one out of there and do it. It just wasn't working. Things were falling to the wayside. So, yeah.
Okay.
So how'd you come up with the name Dark Timber?
Yeah, so it happened a couple years ago. I was in the northern panhandle of Idaho hunting elk.
Okay.
And I was playing this cat and mouse game with this bull, right? So, I'm calling, he's calling, but we're playing this game where we're staying 150 yards apart, right? Because he's moving to his bedding area. He's got his cows with him. And I'm calling, he's calling. He's like, I'm here. Don't come over here. And I'm, bugling at him. He's yelling back at me, and they're going to their bedding area. And so we're working down this ridge, and finally I'm kind of just let him go, right? Like, I know where they're going to be, and I'm just going to let him go. And I'm sitting there, and I always keep my essentials with me, my coffee stuff, right? My backpacking brew kit.
Sure.
So I sit down on the, lean up against this tree, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and I'm sitting in this very dark forest, right? It's the bottom of this ravine, sort of down this ridge. There's like no sunlight in there. It's cool and it's dark, and there's a lot of dark timber around. And as I'm sitting there making my coffee, it just dawned on me, right? Dark Timber Coffee. That's where the name came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a more personal level, do you have family in the area, or?
I have a lot of family here. So my family's been here since, I think they got here in the 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, so We had family here in West Seattle, an Italian family,
Okay.
and then family over in like Genesee area, Columbia City. We used to call it Garlic Gulch.
Okay.
Yeah. So there. So yeah, been here a long time.
Okay. So I mean, since you're kind of a long time local, when you have friends visiting in the area that they've never been here, what's like your favorite place to take them, or what do you like to do? What do you share with them that's so Seattle?
Seattle and like proper nowadays, like, we might go down and, they obviously want to see those iconic things like this, like the Space Needle.
Sure.
Maybe EMP, but, in reality, we tend to do less things like in the downtown area, right? So take them more to see like the natural beauty of the city,
Sure.
right? So like outside the city,
Yeah.
there's lots of things to see. If they've never seen a giant waterfall, take them to Snoqualmie Falls, and they can see that. They're always wowed at that, especially if it's a high water day.
Yeah.
And then taking them across the sound there to the peninsula.
Sure. Jump on a ferry and go to the
Yeah,
rainforest.
30-minute ferry, and it's
Yep.
a different world over there.
Right.
So, yeah, that's kind of the stuff they want to see. A lot of people that come here, they're from the city mainly, so they're used to city stuff.
Sure.
So you show them those iconic things, and then what they really want to see is like that natural beauty, those emerald green rivers and
Right.
those snow-capped mountains, the Olympics, and the Cascades that are sort of mirrored to each other.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Sure. Going back to the business stuff, if you had it to do over again, what would you do differently?
That's a tough question. I wouldn't do much differently. There might have, in the beginning, been some production changes.
Okay.
Right? So with Dark Timber, we like to roast to order, right? So we want things as fresh as possible.
Okay.
Right? And especially with those scent packs, those single serve packets. Those aren't like sort of mass produced by us and then stuck on a warehouse shelf. We make those to order. So
Okay.
we put a production order together, a production sheet together every day, and we roast them and package them and do all that stuff. So what I probably would have changed is sort of how we went about those scent packs, production of those scent packs, because in the beginning it got so busy so quick. We were like, holy moly, and we're a couple weeks out, and there's a few customers that might have wanted theirs a little bit quicker, so we had to communicate that to people. So.
Sure. What's the main mode of getting business? I mean, how do people order their scent packs?
You can go to darktimbercoffee.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can go through our lineup of coffees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a retail space, or just online?
We're just online. So I just have a roastery, a little, a roasting facility, and we have packaging lines. We do all that stuff. Coming from that like brick and mortar cafe side for so long, there's so many things, and don't get me wrong, they're great. Cafes are great. I love them. But for me now, there's so many things that I felt were not something that I wanted to do anymore, right? So like being stuck in one location, one anchor point.
Yeah.
The brick and mortar, tons of overhead. You know what I mean? You're paying for all this stuff, and
Sure.
And you have to build that price into your products.
Right.
All of a sudden, it starts to get really expensive, and you're pricing people out because you've got to pay for this expensive retail location, and then you have to employ it with employees,
Yeah.
and you have vendors, and you have utilities, you have all these things that get built into your product price, right? So I took a step back, and I said, well, let's just try this without a brick and mortar shop. Let's just try this online.
So from the get-go, that's kind of your idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're moving into wholesale now.
Okay.
So very strategic about it, though.
Yeah.
We're not. This isn't an open door. We don't have a salesman knocking on everybody's door. It's very strategic on where we're going to place the product in terms of wholesale, retail.
Sure.
So we have 2 other products coming out within the next couple of months that are pretty cool, and they're different than the ascent pack. So those products are great for like REI style stores, and maybe some Cabela's and outdoor recreation stores, things like that, where you can just grab some and go. And then we would like to have the whole bean coffee and stuff in retail outlets, and maybe some cafes, maybe some lodges.
Okay, sure.
Do really well with the product.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. You said you're being very selective about where you're going with that. What are kind of what are you looking for in a coffee shop or
We're looking for competency in product, right? So we could roast the best coffee, source the best coffee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pay so much attention to the development of that coffee and the roasting, right? So like, everything is perfect, and then it gets to that end user, right? That barista,
Yeah.
and if those proper practices aren't there and those philosophies and the way coffee's extracted,
Right.
it's all of what you've done before that doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Right, and then that customer is going to think, well, I don't like that coffee. They think it's the coffee,
Sure.
right? So,
It's just prepared
which was
poorly. Yeah.
prepared poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could take the best, let's say steak, for instance, the best cut of steak, and you could overcook it, and it would taste like a $2 piece of meat from Safeway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
yeah.
The sacrilege.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of that same thing. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of companies out there that are just like, it's a tonnage volume thing.
Right.
So they're going to drop their prices down and they're going to spread that coffee out.
Yeah.
So we're different approach. We're going to be very selective on who offer the coffee.
Sure. Makes sense.
And then on the back end of that, there's going to be a lot of sort of training,
Okay.
right, to make sure it's up to par.
Sure.
So that's something I did for a long time too, is product training, competition barista stuff. I used to do that.
Okay. What would you say, in the past was kind of holding you back from becoming an entrepreneur, from launching?
The security, I think it was the biggest thing, right? So, and you just kind of get used to that, right?
Sure.
And then you always think about it. You're always kind of dreaming about it the day you're going to go off and do it, but it's like the unknown keeps you from doing it,
Right.
right? And, I had a new baby in February.
Congratulations.
Daughter, thank you.
Yeah.
And it was kind of now or never,
Yeah.
right? So I just had my daughter, and I was like, if I don't do it, it's never going to happen, right? I get stuck into the dad life,
Sure.
and and just never leave this thing. So I had to make the jump, and I had to do it while being a dad was still relatively inexpensive,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What's the main way you're kind of getting the word out there? Obviously, you've got connections in, the hunting, fishing world. Is that a big part of it, or?
Yeah. So the main thing the main sort of way we get the word out is through Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram is the number one for us. Like, we have a Facebook page, but it doesn't produce like Instagram does. And there's some guys that are better at it than me, right? Some guys, it's flopped. Like, they don't do much on Instagram, and most of their business is Facebook.
Sure.
And those are the guys I want to talk to, because I have no idea how they're doing it.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, say if we put up one picture, for instance, the response to that thing is, 300 or whatever, people are liking it, your impressions are into 3,000
Right.
pretty quickly. And with Facebook, it's just,
Sure.
the
The different strengths, the different platforms. You have to find where
yeah,
your
and I think
clients are hanging out.
it's because of who we're targeting.
Right.
Is the reason why, those are that
Sure.
that avenue is so popular.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
'cause
the
it's all
cool thing
visual,
is with Instagram is because of, like our market and what these people do in terms of recreation. It's very beautiful stuff, right? So they're outside, they're
Yep.
taking pictures, and they're doing all these things that's very visually pleasing, and they want to see that stuff when they go to the, onto the internet
Yeah.
and whatever social media site they go to. So
That
I
makes
think
sense.
it's pretty powerful,
Yep.
that kind of thing.
Yep. As you were starting your business, what was some of the best advice you've ever received?
Listen to the market.
Okay. What's the market been telling you?
The market's been telling me to come out with some more products that
Okay.
are a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are those new products? Can you talk about those yet?
Yeah, it all depends on when this podcast is going to come out, but
It'll probably come out about a month from.
oh yeah,
today,
perfect.
so-
We can totally talk about
Okay.
it. So right now we have our scent packs, which are like, think of like a mini French press.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's like making a French press, but you're encapsulating the coffee in
Okay.
a filter paper, right? It's fractional packaging. So you're gonna like put it in your cup. You're gonna pour your water, and you're gonna brew it just like a French press.
Okay.
The only thing you're not gonna do, you're not gonna press it, right?
Okay.
You're just gonna take it out. We leave them in. We don't take them out.
Sure.
Just more soluble, the better.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we have that product. Then we have what we're going to call our gravity pack,
Mm-hmm.
right, which is gravity coffee. So instead of like full immersion coffee like a French press is, you're going to have a gravity pack, which is kind of goes over your cup.
Okay. It's
Right.
kind of like
And
a pour over type
It's
thing.
a pour over.
Okay.
It's a backpacking pour over.
Sure. That's
Right.
how we brew at home. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's all I do.
Yeah.
Right. You go to my kitchen, it's like a lab.
Yeah.
Like commercial espresso machines. I have full siphon bar.
Yep.
I have Chemexes. I have
Yeah,
Hario
it's-
V60s. I got
Yep.
all that stuff.
Yeah,
so-
we've become a Chemex family.
Yeah, that's all I do. I made
Yep.
Chemex before I came here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we had that evolution from the, Mr. Coffee to the, like,
it's funny how you graduate, right? You,
right.
like,
And
graduate
we did
up.
the French press for a while and then found out about this Chemex thing. Like, I don't know, something about brewing and glass. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's really the one thing that I love the Chemex. One thing I would change about it, I would put turbulent ribs in it, so it adds some turbulence to it.
Sure.
So what happens with Chemex is that the filter sucks into the side of that glass because it's smooth,
Right.
and then you're only brewing right at the bottom.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so you want kind of, if you look at like a Hario V60 cone,
Yep.
it's got those like ribs in it.
Okay, so it makes it turn while
Yeah,
it's,
but it like pulls the filter off the side, so
Oh,
then
that
the
makes sense.
coffee's actually coming
not
out the
smooth in the
side.
cone, so-
Yeah,
okay.
so it's not like kind of backed up. But it makes a great cup of coffee. And the nice thing you can do with it too is you can control your extraction rate.
Okay.
Right, so in a perfect world, what you want to do is you want to match the inflow to the outflow.
Okay.
Right, so that water level
Stays consistent.
it's just constant. It just sticks right there. It's not going up and down, up and
Right.
down, up and down. Grounds get cold, grounds get hot, grounds get cold, grounds get hot. So it's just, you keep it right at one level, and then, I put it on a scale so I know how much water I'm putting in there, right? So then you can start doing your ratios.
Sure. Sounds very scientific.
Yeah, it is. Once you start playing with ratios in coffee, it gets,
Sure.
you go down that rabbit hole
Sure.
of really starting to get nerdy with it.
Right. Well, I mean, become a roaster and like not care about science and chemistry.
Yeah, gram weights, water
Yep.
ratios, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really matters. I mean, in terms of espresso too, a lot of people think you just put grounds in a portafilter and slam it in a machine and there you go. And but there's a lot of ratios going on in
Sure.
terms of espresso too, and how you dial it in for that day. If it's a rainy day like this, it's going to pull in moisture. You're going to use a little bit less coffee.
Sure. What would you say is a personal habit that contributes to your success? Well, you already mentioned hard work. but
Yeah,
Is there,
I mean-
is there another habit?
Yeah, I mean, hard work and drive, and just a love for what I'm doing.
Sure.
This isn't just something where I'm like, I could see a dollar out there somewhere. Like, if there's a dollar sign over there, I'm going to chase that thing.
Right.
This is what I love to do, and this is the life that I want, and that's the biggest driver for me. So it's not the money part of it. That's just a way to keep me doing what I like to do.
Sure. And
You know
enables
what I
you
mean?
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So it's just the love for what I'm doing. And I started at a young age. I made my first latte when I was like 8 or 9, maybe younger than that. Family deli on Dearborn.
Okay.
So it's been a passion for me for a long time. I
Yeah.
bought my first espresso cart when I was 19.
Okay. A young entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've been in it a long time.
Been out there hustling. It's good.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Giant hustle.
As you're continuing to run Dark Timber, I assume you're still the primary one doing the roasting and stuff.
Yeah.
Have
Oh,
you,
yeah. The roaster that we roast on is a antique roaster. It's a really cool roaster.
Okay.
It's belt driven.
did
Yeah,
you come
not
up
a lot
with
of
that?
belt driven roasters out there anymore. And it's the amount of experience and know-how to be able to roast on that kind of machine that doesn't have, the updated things and
it's not computerized and automated.
computer
and-
plugins and graphs and sheets on a laptop sitting next to it that most roasters and most roasteries have these days. It's tough.
Sure.
Right. So we're very analog in the way we roast coffee. It's sight, smell, sound. We know what that coffee's doing. We're constantly looking at it, looking at the development. And that to be able to translate that to somebody. So that almost 2 decades of knowledge of roasting and coffee to translate that to somebody is very difficult.
Right.
It takes time.
Yeah.
So, and finding the right individual where, you're going to invest in that person.
Yep.
So it's not you're not just hiring bodies.
Right.
We need help.
Yeah.
So if I find that right candidate who's got that right drive and wants to do this and it's something that they really want to do, then I would definitely start that process and
Sure.
getting somebody else roasting. But For right now, it's it's me.
Yeah. What do you see is kind of next for Dark Timber? I mean, with your facility and the old school roaster and stuff, you guys have capacity to grow.
We do. We definitely have capacity on the single serve side of things. That's tough because like I said before, we roast to order, so that would have to change a little bit on how we do things because it takes a long time to create those. We don't have these machinery that you just kind of load coffee into and it out pops these things. I mean,
Sure.
all these things are hand built.
Okay.
But on the wholesale retail bag side, there's room still. So, and that's what we're going to go after. We're going to start pursuing that wholesale side. In the beginning, I didn't really want to do wholesale because that takes up a lot of time, right? And you have to sell a lot to even make it
Sure, the margins
worthwhile.
probably
They're a lot
narrower,
smaller, and if you get an account and they buy a 1 5-pound bag a week, you start filling up with those ones. It's hard to keep the doors open doing that.
Sure.
If we pursued it more, we'd probably up our production in terms of roaster size and things. And once we do that, and then we have a roaster. Right now, we're roasting on a 10-kilo roaster. It's actually a little bit less than that. Max is 10 kilo, but it doesn't do that much. But we would up the size of the roaster, and then we would have some real room to grow with.
Sure. Okay. So as we kind of wrap up the episode, do you before we started recording, you mentioned that you listened to some podcasts. What are your favorites?
Yeah. So my favorites right now. So I was listening to this before I came here. Joe Rogan Experience. Yeah. So on my phone right now, what I've listened to is the Joe Rogan Experience, the Gritty Bowman.
Okay.
Hunt Talk Radio, Kafaru Cast, Meat Eater is probably one. Joe Rogan Experience and Meat Eater probably my top two.
Okay.
Just because of the guests and the topics that they talk about. So it's not your average like hunting or angling podcast where they're just talking about those type of things. There's a wide range of topics that they go over in those podcasts, and they're really interesting in terms of like a biology side to wildlife or wildlife issues, or in terms of the Meat Eater podcast with Steven Ranella, who's local here.
Okay.
I think he's in Magnolia.
What's he do?
Steven Ranella, he's part of Meat Eater, or he
Okay.
is Meat Eater.
Oh, I gotcha. So he's the podcast host or whatever.
Yeah,
okay,
him and Giannis Patelis, they're sort of his co-host. He's always got some characters that are pretty frequent on the show, which is pretty cool. But they talk about not only a hunting side or angling, food preparation, because that is food. That's where a lot of people acquire their food. They don't like buying food at the grocery store, like meat.
Sure.
Like their meat comes from a wild source, like it used to. So they go over like cooking recipes and how to take care of it. And lately they've been talking about really like sort of upscale dishes with it.
Yeah.
So shanks and things like that. Some charcuterie stuff with the meat, and it's pretty neat stuff. So even if somebody's not interested in hunting or in that side of it, just listening to it, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage them to listen to that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, sounds interesting.
It really is. Yeah.
My dad, who is always sharing with us, his recipes for
your dad did
pheasant and elk. And,
he did good this year. Yeah. I don't. He was hunting grouse where I usually hunt grouse, and it's tough there. But he got a few in there.
Yeah.
Which is pretty neat. He got an elk this year.
Yep.
I think
he got
it's
an
his
elk. first year. Yeah.
Yeah, Colorado.
I'm pretty proud of him.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of him too.
Can you share with us one piece of parting guidance or words of wisdom for our listeners?
If you have that fire inside you that you want to go and do something different, I would, in terms of what you do for a living, or just try to make that happen. Like I said before, I was kind of stuck in that groove, right? Trying to get out of that groove was really scary.
It's very comfortable, those grooves.
It's super comfortable, but you don't achieve a lot, right? Personally, you don't achieve much. and you're always kind of working to make somebody else better, right? So the company, that's always kind of the company first. And once I stepped out and started Dark Timber, it was Dark Timber first, me first, my family first, and I wouldn't change that for the world. I mean, I wouldn't go back.
Sure. Once you get a taste of that freedom and what you can,
Yeah.
the potential
Yeah,
and stuff, it's hard to
exactly.
go back to it.
And it's like the decisions that you make, are impacting your outfit, your family, instead of what's better for that company, bottom line for the investors.
Yeah.
What do the investors want to see? Like doing that sort of puppet dance. It's nice to be free from that.
Yeah. It's
So if you have that fire inside you, I would say to try to make it happen.
yeah.
It's scary. I mean, it really is. Not knowing where that first dollar is going to come from.
Sure.
Before you even launch, like, not $1 has come through yet. That's a scary feeling.
Right.
But once it starts rolling, and it starts kind of getting momentum, that fear subsides a little bit. Always keep it there, right? Because that keeps you driving.
Sure.
That keeps you hungry.
Always you get complacent and lazy.
Don't get
and
complacent
dries
and
up.
lazy. Yeah, right. You start, I'll do it tomorrow
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, that's kind of detrimental to what you're trying to do.
Sure.
But yeah, it's hard, but it makes you happy.
Yeah, I definitely think that the trade-off for trading the comfort and security for the
Yeah.
potential and building something
Yeah.
yourself
That
is
paycheck, you just get comfortable getting that paycheck, and sometimes, right now you might not get a paycheck. Bills got to be paid first, and vendors have to be paid first, and you just got to believe in yourself and know that it's going to come down the line.
Yep.
All that hard work you're putting in right now, that's just investment. So look at it as investment. Don't look at it as I'm working for free. Just that's your investment into the company, and you'll get paid on that investment at some
Yep.
point.
Yeah, for sure. If our listeners, want to try out your great coffee and support what you're doing, what's the best way to do that?
You can find our coffee at darktimbercoffee.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so you go there and it'll say like get coffee. So you click that
Click
button,
that button,
and
okay.
get some coffee.
Well, thank you for your time today, Tony. Hopefully our listeners will go check out Dark Timber and buy some of your scent packs. And yeah, appreciate your time.
I appreciate being here, man. It's fun.
Yeah, good times.
Awesome.
Cool.
That wraps up this week's episode of the Seatown Podcast. Make sure to check out our guest website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions, know someone who should be a guest on here, or has a story worth sharing, email me at christianharris@seatown.com. That's sea-town.com. I would also be honored if you could go to iTunes and give us a review and a nice 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on great guests and provide exceptional content, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rank well in iTunes so others can find and enjoy the show as well. You can also find out more about me, how my real estate brokerage and our unconventional approach can help you with your Seattle area real estate needs, or other projects I'm working on by visiting seatown.com, sea-town.com. Today's intro and outro music is brought to you by the Fascination Movement. You can find their albums in the iTunes Store. The Seatown Podcast creator and host is Christian Harris. You can listen to more episodes and find our show notes on our website at seatownpodcast.com. This has been a Seatown Media production.
What kind of coffee do you like?
I like dark stuff.
You like dark? Yeah. So you'll like either a Colombian Supremo, which we take a little bit darker. We have a Stealthy Hunter blend that we take pretty dark.
Okay.
We won't take it like super dark,
Yeah.
just because the coffees that we buy they're specialty grades. So when you roast them darker, whatever made those coffees great, right? Mm-hmm. And they're still going to be good as dark coffees, but you wouldn't need to use that higher grade coffee to roast.
Gotcha. You
For
can
darker
go a
roaster.
little lower grade. for
Yeah,
darker roast.
yeah.
Okay.
So the coffees that we buy are really pricey and they're really nice. So we
Yep.
won't take them like to that like
I
oily
like
French.
mediums. I like mediums too.
Mediums are great. Yeah, mediums are good because
Like
and
what
I always
my
try to
wife makes.
recommend those to people first. I'm like, try what's called a full city or city roast.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're doing is you're caramelizing all those sugars within the coffee. So the coffee's at its sweetest point. You're not getting that smoke overtone of a darker roast, right? Where you're gonna like mute or like mask over any subtle flavors that coffee might have. So like makes it specific to the area that it's grown.
Okay.
Right. So like if you're talking about an heirloom Yirgacheffe, right, you're gonna have that like floral sweet fruit. Right. But if you roast it dark, you might have the sweetness and a little bit of that fruit left, but those delicate flavors are gonna be lost.
Sure.
With
That
the
makes sense.
coffee. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I guess I just assumed that, I generally go for dark, like
Yeah. No,
in
a lot of
beers,
people.
I go for stouts and
You know what's
porters
funny?
and-
And
yeah.
kind of circling back to that listening to your customers thing. Like we in the beginning didn't have a dark roast because I never really roasted one, right? Because of that, because of buying the nicer coffees, and you're just roasting away whatever made that coffee great, But listening to the customers, and they're saying, "We want dark coffee. We want darker." Now we're like kind of getting into that realm. So we'll take it in terms of roast, profile, color profile. We'll take it like almost to French roast. So it's not like, we call it sweaty coffee.
Okay.
So like it's got the like glistening oil all over it, right? So we take it to like almost that point, and then we'll like end the roast, right?
Okay.
We'll cool it down so you don't get that sweating. What happens with that sweating is, that oil comes to the surface, and that oil goes rancid once it hits oxygen, right? So it's kind of like putting stale coffee in a bag right when it's roasted.
Sure.
Right, but we take it almost there, which gives people that like sort of darker flavor that they like. It's not super smoky, but it's not a middle roast. Yeah.
I learned so much on this podcast.
Yeah.